Some games deserve a sequel. In this case, that game would be The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, which has been noted as one of the greatest video games of all time. It has received praise across the board, and deservedly so. Now, one might ask, how can you follow up such a groundbreaking and seemingly perfect video game? Easy. With Majora's Mask. This does what only few sequels did up to that time, that is to completely change the formula from the previous game. This has been seen in Super Mario Bros. 2, or at least the one we got here in America. But Majora's Mask seems to be the defining example of a sequel done right. It looks like the previous game, but does enough to stand on its own as a quality title. This is Majora's Mask for the Nintendo 64. Now, a quick note, I'm not going to be getting into the Zelda timeline and where this game fits in it. I frankly do not care about the Zelda timeline, and am way too lazy to try and figure it out. But it is occasionally fun to think about. The game begins with Link riding Epona slowly through what I assume is either the Kokiri Forest or the Lost Forest. You never really find out. When all of a sudden Epona is spooked by two fairies and knocks Link off. Our main antagonist of the game, the Skull Kid, is shown in all his glory. He then proceeds to get on Epona just as Link is waking up, and takes him for a ride. Link unfortunately cannot hold on and falls to the ground once again. Now the game actually starts. In this part, all you're required to do is navigate through this little area. And down you go like Alice in Wonderland. Eventually, after the Skull Kid turns Link into a little Deku thing, he runs off, leaving Link alone, but with the help of one of the Skull Kid's fairies. Your next objective is just to make your way to the Happy Mask Salesman, who did appear in the last game, though he is much more important in this game. He gives you a good offer. Simply bring back his prized mask that the Skull Kid has stolen, and he will turn you back into your normal self. Sounds pretty good. From this you can gather that the next thing to do is find the Skull Kid and turn back to normal. Once you finally do, you'll notice that in your inventory is a Deku mask. This is because one of the main gimmicks of the game is that you can become 3 different beings with the help of different masks. You can turn into a Deku Sprout, a Goron, and a Zora. The rest of the game's story is just you trying to find the Skull Kid, all while beating different, very perplexing dungeons. Now, what sets this game apart from Ocarina of Time is the 3-day amount of time you are given to complete this adventure. In the real world, this boils down to about 54 minutes. For a Zelda game, that is certainly not enough time. The neat trick is that once you get your trusty ocarina back from the Skull Kid, you can use it to manipulate time. One song can speed up time, one song can slow down time, and another song can send you all the way back to day 1 of your journey. I like this idea as it hasn't really been used in other games, let alone another Zelda game. Some people may not like the idea of an ever-present clock ticking away to the end of the world, but for me, it gives me a good sense of urgency, and that what I'm doing really matters. In Ocarina of Time, the world also needed to be saved, but you could really do it at your own pace, making your way through each of the dungeons as slow or as fast as you want. But this game totally gets rid of the concept of casually strolling your way through a game without a care in the world. Majora's Mask lets you know that shit is going to go down if you don't hurry your ass up. And I kinda like that. Majora's Mask also has a great deal of side quests, which some people consider the main focus of the game. There are numerous people to help, heart pieces to gather, songs to learn, and masks to get. The first time I went through this game, I did not do any of the side quests and only focused on the main story, which effectively cut the time it took me to beat the game down a whole lot. Majora's Mask is also sporting some pretty impressive graphics. It was released in 2000, close to the N64's death and the birth of the GameCube. It's so good looking that it requires the memory expansion pack just to play it, which was also done in Donkey Kong 64. But that had a game-breaking bug that required the use of the memory expansion pack, otherwise you wouldn't be able to play it. This game also has one of my favorite Zelda game soundtracks. This soundtrack is much more memorable than the likes of Ocarina of Time, which had a great soundtrack, but it didn't really stick in my head when I was done playing it. One of the greatest video games and video game sequels of all time. This is Majora's Mask for the Nintendo 64.